Okay, so on the American Constitution, it has the right to the pursuit of happiness, which I suppose is the antithesis to depression. And I think that there's a lot to the pursuit of happiness and away from depression. Depression being the sort of disproportionate negative attitude to some life events or some life situation. So it would be that, for example, if some family member dies, and then a person might for a few weeks, even for a few months perhaps, feel sad, well, that would not be depression. That would just be simply an appropriate reaction of a human who feels bereft, and it would be appropriate. But depression is more that everything's good, the sun is out, everyone's happy, everything is there to fulfill the obvious requirements of being happy, yet there is no happiness. There is only the unhappiness, the despair perhaps of depression. And in regards to that, I can actually factually say that I've never been depressed a day in my life, and I would think that perhaps that in itself might be a reason for me to speak on the topic of of depression, if I can. Yeah. And so, well, it's good because in
what
happiness.
What is going on here with this talking?
Yeah, right. Well, that's my reminder, so that I don't have to remember to do the shopping. I just have a reminder on my phone that tells me to do the shopping, so that I can concentrate on higher thoughts, more philosophical, intellectual thoughts, rather than when I need to do the shopping. But in regards to this feeling, not feeling depressed, having some kind of a contentment, if one can agree that that's a sort of a reasonable, attainable goal, to feel perhaps not happy all the time, because that happiness in some ways is just like a swinging pendulum, where there would be sadness and then happiness, or suffering and then happiness, and therefore you can't really retain in a state of happiness. And therefore, like, one could say, well, you can retain in a state of contentment, because that's more a satisfactory feeling, perhaps some kind of a joy. But I think that that it's all about, because some say that it's perhaps a imbalance in some kind of biochemistry that makes people be depressed. And there may be individuals with this imbalance, but I would say most of the depression in the world would be more to a way of thinking that's conducive to depression, being the etiology of depression. And I would think that perhaps because I don't suffer from depression and never have, that I might have some input into this. So that is that how I think about things is that if something happens, so a lot of people are triggered into depression, and then there's a continuation of triggers that just keeps that person in depression. So in that type of depression, I would say I have discovered that if you know that there is a good reason for anything that can happen to you, and then if anything happens to you that would make you suffer, then it is just a matter of searching in your mind, thinking about what it is that actually this is a benefit in which way that this benefits you. So somebody might tell you that you're that you some aspect of your personality is something that is not appreciated by them or others, and one could go into depression from that and start thinking that one is somehow not a good person. But one could also look at it as just simply taking that as a fact and going, aha, okay, well, if this person truly observed me from the outside perspective and has noticed, just the same as a little child can notice even the best driver reversing into a stump or something that the driver can't see, it gives you this perspective that somebody else is letting you know that some behavior is inappropriate. And therefore one can actually be grateful and happy about the fact that that person has shared their perspective and has given you their feedback, because how else are we to adjust for things that we ourselves cannot see, just like the experienced driver reversing into the stump example. And so I think that we should be grateful for people's criticism, for people's feedback, and even to the degree of it seeming... See, because I notice a lot of times when somebody gives you some feedback and they criticize you, that people just sort of see that it's an attack and they attack back. But in fact, I think that it is to be taken as a gift and appreciated, and not something to be calling the other person a hypocrite. Because really, what does it matter if an alcoholic calls another person an alcoholic? It's still a fair call, and it's not for that person being called an alcoholic by the alcoholic to point out that that other person is an alcoholic. It's more for that alcoholic to realize, yeah, you're right, you know, that's true. Also, I've never done any drugs. Never felt the need to, because I feel like you need to use that as a sort of a guide to live your life in a happy way, is to use your feelings to tell you which way you need to go instead of masking them with some kind of drug. Yeah, so that would... I think there's a lot more to say on this topic, but that I think would conclude just the basics of avoiding depression, I think, according to me.